My arch nemesis again. Stairs. So you have to let me know. Worth it for the video. Today I'm checking out the Insta X5, which you can do a lot of. We'll make a lot of planet Earth type thing, which is what I thought would be quite good about being up here. And you just do a lot with it, basically. Let's get into the video. Last year, one of my favourite cameras was, of course, the Pocket 3. It's been a camera that's been invaluable over the last year, and we both use it in the store for reels. Clear, what have you got there? General content as well, and this incredibly powerful little device. Insta360 of course released the X5 recently, which has a similar role within a gear bag, and in this video we're going to be putting them up against each other and talking about positives and the negatives of both. Stick around to the end of the video where you're going to find out my actual kind of reasoning behind why I think they both really have a place inside of a gear bag. However, I think the X5 is a very powerful device that gives you a hell of a lot of options. It does some things which the Pocket 3 just does a little bit better. So let's get into it. Inside of the shop, it is actually quite dark, so I've turned on pure video onto the camera. Just come and see Clear. How are you doing, Clear?
Stu, how are you, my friend? Good seeing you again.
There's a little bit different with the specs. It's got a slightly better battery. It does 8K. It doesn't do 8K for like your landscape or your portrait images. It's the 8K is the image out of the camera for the 360.
That's fantastic.
So the usable amount of Ks when it comes to actually shooting is 5.7K plus, and then you've got 5.7K for you to be able to use the log in particular.
I tell you what, I think this is absolutely fantastic. The people that's going to benefit the most from this now are real creators, people out there taking the kit out into the ruck sort of thing, you know, treating them as gear as they actually are. But I tell you who's going to benefit more from this is us as retailers, because taking these in second hand when they've got scuffs and scratches on the lenses just completely wrecks the price. It ruins it for the next person that wants to buy it.
It also shows up for a right to repair as well.
I mean, that's fantastic.
So that's actually, you know, for people who, because, you know, bear in mind that the majority of people getting this are going to be people who, you know, who are doing sports. It's a big old battery as well.
It's a
so
unit,
it's a slightly bigger battery. I believe it does 183 minutes.
That's impressive.
Opposed to the 135 or 140 to the X4.
On an 8K camera, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Quite
impressive.
It's a camera that I think you can pretty much just set and forget. And I think really the biggest comparison, and what I'm trying to do today, is compare this to what I'm shooting this interview with at the moment.
Pocket 3.
With the Pocket 3. Because in terms of like a BTS camera, I mean, they're relatively the same.
Good looking things.
Can I get you to do this? No, you just, it just loves
me. The camera always loves me.
Yeah, so basically all we need to do is turn it on.
Do you know what? I can 100% say with honesty, I've never used one. Yeah, there we go.
Is it still tracking you?
Yeah, both tracking me quite accurately as well. You can
so
see that
we are
gimbal.
now just testing out to see the tracking capabilities of both cameras next to each other.
Yeah, it's keeping up with me. They're keeping up with me very, very accurately.
Oh,
I mean, what else can you say? In what scenario you do a movement this rapidly, kind of sort of, you know, trying to avoid it? I mean,
for like sports and stuff, I see people doing it maybe, but
but I think they can track them even better. Because, you know, I can't find a scenario where you'd have that sort of motion of trying to avoid the camera instead of trying to work with it. I mean, they are perfectly keeping up with me.
For the most part. I mean, what I've noticed is that the Pocket 3 does lag behind a little bit, but there are bonuses to the Pocket 3 that this doesn't have, and there are bonuses to this that this doesn't have.
This is it. They are different cameras in their own element.
And now, although this isn't tracking, technically I can now put that into the editing software that you can get for the Insta360, and we can get this angle, that angle, and everything at the same time. So for our interviews, this is going to be a little bit better.
Yeah.
Oh, the other side to these as well is I think you can get more creative looking shots with this just because of the size and the fact it can grab everything. So for example, I can put it up high, get like a Quentin Tarantino kind of like top-down view shot of
Classic.
people moving around the thing.
Yeah.
I could even try that right now, to be honest with you, and see
I
what
mean,
it
it'd be
looks
quite
like.
cool to try and do. I mean, just chuck it up in the air really and just kind of watch it go.
So this really comes down to you as a creator and what your needs really are. What I've done is shot a number of reviews with this recently, and I did one where I pretty much just used the Pocket 3 and the other where I pretty much just used the X5. So this is at a little bit of a distance now, checking to see if the audio still comes through, and this is of course set on to 16:9 rather than the portrait mode, and it's set at 5.7K. They are really about the same size. It's got a beautiful and intuitive display, which I really actually liked. Despite, I absolutely love the Pocket 3 display because it just does things a bit differently. But the display on the Insta360 X5 is really, really nice, especially when you're mounting it in certain situations. With that beautiful display, you also have a very intuitive workflow. This is Insta360 Studio, which you import your 360 files into as soon as you've kind of transferred them off of the card into the computer. You can also transfer it straight from the camera itself, which is maybe just a little bit faster. What you can do here is, first of all, load up all your clips and it will automatically convert them into a more manageable kind of like format where you can have a look around and see what you've got. You see this little icon? When you first load them up, this little icon is grey. You click that and then Insta360 will go through the clip and grab basically any shots it feels like it could possibly use for something. So for example, we've got this clip here right here, and it's of me walking down talking about the camera. What I can do is, oh, there's another clip here that I think it's good. It's going to be like tracking me walking down the street, and then it's like, oh, let's focus on the red car, or let's focus on this person walking past. So essentially what you've got here is a B-roll machine to grab pretty much everything you can in a scene, and that in itself is actually a really powerful tool. You can, however, still go into here and click and change certain settings depending on the clip, and that'll bring up this menu here, which allows you to do like a crystal ball, which basically turns it into a ball, or you can do a tiny planet, move this around, get the best kind of like ratio, do something like that. It's like an eye, doesn't it? And you can just do some really creative stuff with the actual shots that you actually have there. You also can press deep track here, so you just press deep track. So you can just press deep track and it will select a target. For some reason it's on my crotch, and then it will just go through that and then track that to the best of its ability. Let's go outside of the keyframe, which is down the bottom. Deep track. Start tracking, and then it'll just track me as it kind of like goes around, keeping that similar sort of like ratio for the shot. Exporting it is relatively simple. You can go here, you can either go for the full 360 file, which is what you've seen in the video so far, that is the 8K video, or you can go simple video file here, export it in 4K. If you come here and go H265, you've got the ability to put Dolby Vision on. This affects how the image actually looks, and I think it gives you just a little bit of leeway in post. However, when I first started doing this, it did really confuse me because some clips were a different color to other clips, and it was very confusing. But I'll show you a comparison between the two clips right now. Personally, I think I do actually prefer the original clip to the Dolby Vision clip. However, it does look like it's more to give you leeway in post with a little bit of grading. But if you're going to be doing grading, you're going to be putting it into a log mode. Speaking of, this is now the 5.7K Plus, and what it looks like, and then what it looks like converted. This is the 5.7K usual, as you generally walk, and what you can get out of it. And this is the 5.7K normal, but set to log, which we can then color grade. Most of the footage coming out of this, I haven't actually put into log. It's just straight out what you get into the camera. And then, yeah. And then this is a side-by-side comparison between the log from the X5 to the log from the Pocket 3. As you can see, I feel like the one that does better here is actually the Pocket 3, but it does perform quite well, the X5, in its own right. The Insta360 Studio is super useful. Now let's jump over to the mobile phone variant and we can have a little bit more of a play there. This app has a lot to it, both with being able to control the X5, but also being able to use the X5 as a way to edit all of the footage that you have. It's just a simple analyzing process, takes a little while and then another minute for it to edit the footage, and then you get something a little bit like this. Okay, in my honest opinion, I don't think it's very good, but that's because I have more intention behind this video. When it comes to people who use this video, they're more than likely just want to post stuff to social media and it just generally work. The rest of the app is fairly intuitive. You can go around, change pretty much anything you really want to inside of the app, go to all of the different modes and basically view, control, adapt and work with the camera in order to get the best shot possible. What I found I was using the most was Instaframe, which is this really cool mode which basically gives you a usable shot straight away. You can export it straight to your phone and it just simply works, which is really nice, and it's something which I find or have found frustrating with touching 360 footage in the past. So the amount of time you actually spend in the app is actually significantly reduced to before, where it was just a little bit more complex in order to really do some stuff, and you just have a lot of opportunity there with this camera. The Pocket 3 app is a lot simpler, and the app is obviously DJI Mimo, and it allows you to do a lot of similar things, go through your footage, check over everything, download it to your phone if you edit via your phone, and then it also gives you access to full control of the actual camera itself. The other thing you can do with the DJI Mimo app is automatically edit your footage by just selecting the clips you want to use, and then it's going to analyze them, very similar to what the X5 app does. However, they produce the same sort of fairly boring results. Baby, I don't wanna be over. I just wanna stay for... As you can see, the result is fairly mediocre and no real creativity, just general cuts to footage and then going back and forth. I mean, when it comes to the X5, I believe it actually has the opportunity to be more creative because the shots can be a little bit wilder, a little bit quirkier, and because you got that 360 view, you got a lot more option as to what the camera can create out of it. But yeah, the cameras both have good low light capabilities, and although the Pocket 3 does perform a little bit better in this situation, the footage from the X5 I think is kind of like embracing of the entire scene rather than just something that's directly ahead of it. But the Pocket 3 performs really well and it's actually super usable footage. The main things people are talking about when it comes to the Insta360 is your ability to be able to change out the lenses if you damage them. This isn't adding a different lens for a different style. This is taking a lens that you're scratched or broken and replacing it with a lens that is actually in good nick. So this is more about the right to repair your product rather than not, because in the past, especially when it comes to us as a store, we've had Insta360s come in and they're just scratched all how and pretty much worthless at that point. So it's nice that with this X5 that we actually have the ability to change out those lenses if they either come into the store or if you're out and about shooting yourself and you don't want to necessarily have a scratch through your lens, you can actually change it out. Again, this will come at an extra cost of buying a replacement lens, but you can do it at home rather than sending it off to a repair center. So this is actually a really nice feature that they've added here. And when it comes to the X5 just in general, I do feel like most of the decisions when it came to what they've done with this camera have been pretty much just to fix all of the sort of like things people have disliked about the camera in the past. Something that's not really mentioned with this camera that much, and if you're looking at this from a professional's perspective, is what this camera can really do do for you. And unlike the Osmo Pocket 3, you can do these things called 360 VR tours, which is just another form of revenue that could actually earn you some really good money just in general. And there are a number of stitching platforms for you to be able to, create these 360 tours both for businesses and for real estate and property. 360 cameras are in fact an invaluable part of many people's gear, and I think this would be an invaluable part of your gear. With the X5 you actually have the ability to film slow motion at 4K, which is pretty great for capturing shots that you'd otherwise not be able to do. You've also got a number of like Insta frame modes and things to really help you take some great shots, using a hyperlapse and a time-lapse mode there as well, for you to really be able to create these shots that are just ultimately different from anything that you've really got, and being able to create those shots a lot easier than using a big rig to be able to do them. And it's with these modes that I believe the X5 really kind of like steps away from the Pocket 3, as it does do them a lot better. What you're seeing now is of course Pocket 3 time lapses, and we're going to jump back now to the time lapse or the hyperlapse from the X5, and as you can see, there's just a distinct difference here. The other thing you can do is of course kind of motion warp it as well, which adds the motion blur, which works really well for hyperlapses, but when it comes to time lapses you can see a lot of the sort of like warping in the actual image. So in this retrospect it's probably clearer just to get a normal time lapse. But the X5 takes the point here, I believe. So the Insta360 X5 has a lot of capabilities, and I think it's an overall fantastic device. Now let's jump over to the Pocket 3. Of course, the Pocket 3 is one of my favourite sidekick cameras from last year. I think it has a place in my gear bag as something for me to be able to get general shots and cinematic looking shots when I don't necessarily have somebody else to shoot.
Improve a lot more, don't they?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Like easy being a swab.
Video. And for just shooting general BTS video, but also just like an almost click and forget it camera. And ultimately it makes the experience of creating vlogs and just creating videos so much simpler. Of course it does 4K 60, and with this camera, because it's more of a gimbal kind of setup, you actually have the ability to have both a larger sensor and actually a decent amount of depth there in the images, which is something I would note the Insta360 X5 does not actually have. It captures everything, whereas this can really focus in and get cinematic footage, but also shots that look just a little bit better in general, even though on paper the Insta360 X5 shoots higher quality video. And with that gimbal, like I said, you get super smooth walking about footage. In the video in which I shot with this, the review video I shot with this, what I actually really enjoyed having is it just like literally attached to my chest right here, and then using it as a way to capture other people whilst we're going around and talking about certain subjects. The other plus here is that you can actually connect the Pocket 3 to the DJI Mic 2, giving you higher quality audio, and especially if you're kind of like interviewing people but not necessarily wanting that angle of yourself, I think you can get some really human and really nice responses from that kind of interaction. However, when it comes to an interview situation, what I would say is the X5 gives you the opportunity to shoot all of the angles that you want to take all at once. Placing this in between you and the person you're interviewing allows you to like simply click, forget it, and then just talk about things that you want to.
Doing T-Rex arms and I'm like...
So although the footage I feel looks more cinematic and looks a little bit better out of the Pocket 3, I would say if you want a camera that pretty much does it all and makes the process of capturing all angles all at once so much easier, then the X5 really does it. When it comes to the two side by side, I do believe it does take up a little bit more room in my gear bag just to make sure it's safe. Because it has moving components to it, that is something that I am always quite worried about, is if that gimbal is ultimately going to break, because it is a lot smaller, and especially with the ability to kind of fidget, play with the screen as well. That's another moving part which may become weak in the future. I don't know, it hasn't happened to me, and this would be an interesting thing to hear from you guys, is if you've had experience of the Pocket 3 actually breaking on you. The X5 is completely waterproof, with being able to take it to around about 15 meters, allowing you to get shots that you would not be able to get absolutely anyway in terms of swimming underwater and grabbing kind of marine life. Didn't do much of that kind of swimming in this video, but you have the ability to do it then. It's not gonna break in the rain, or if you're going to take it somewhere a little bit more kind of dangerous. It's actually an incredibly rugged camera, and with the ability to change out the lenses there as well, I think the X5 really wins it in terms of durability and being able to be used in pretty much any situation. Of course, I put the cameras through some similar sort of mounting solutions, and this is what I would have to say in that retrospect. When it comes to chest mounting, I do believe the Pocket 3 works a little bit better than the X5. This is mainly because
Now, Stu, this lens is amazing.
oh, what this lens?
Well, I was thinking more this lens, but
Right,
sure.
It's not a measuring contest.
Bigger is better.
This is mainly because the angle in which captures this way looks up at my double chin, and it's not a particularly flattering angle, and the angle outwards always kind of ends up getting disrupted by the stitching in between the two shots, because that's how 360 cameras work. They've got two shots that are stitched together in order to create that 360 view. I think you can get around it, and I'll talk about my idea for that, but mounting it to the top of your camera also creates weird kind of like stitching looks, and I've seen some people just not care about this and care more about the content that it gets, which I think is a good way of looking at it. It is something which, if you're a perfectionist, you don't necessarily want to see your camera looking a little bit weird, or, a really distorted view of yourself. You want to see something clean from both angles in order to really get shot. Next mounting solution is attaching this to a pole in order to get a wider shot of yourself. Now, with the X5, I feel like this actually comes out over top of the Pocket 3, having a nice wide angle but also stable looking shot from the X5 was actually really quite nice during the 14 to 24 review of the new Samyang lens. Here are some clips of me using the extension pole with both of the cameras in different ways, starting with the Pocket 3.
Hey, my name's Ferry, and this is my chip. Look at it. Barely fits in thing. Using the Osmo Pocket 3 on the top in order to grab the shot, as it tracks it really quite nicely. We've got two kind of different angles. We've got the 360, of course, with the X5, and then the Pocket 3. The Pocket 3 works in this kind of situation really well, because it's more that kind of gimbal-like movement that is, kind of what you're really looking for general social media contact. I can't recommend the Pocket 3 enough, because it is absolutely excellent. I mean, it's a nice small form factor. I can do even taller jibs than this, and basically looking to get some interesting gimbal-like movement. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1.
The Wales and West Photography Show is back for 2025, and it's on the 19th to the 21st of June at the ICC Wales in Newport. Now this year we're going to have two main guest speaker stages. We're going to, it's not two main. I got it though.
He did, in the end.
What do you mean?
You know.
Doing T-Rex arms, and I'm like...
And then this is the X5 now on the extension pole, and it just allows you to get just a solely unique perspective. So this is at a little bit of a distance now, checking to see if the audio still comes through. And this is of course set on to 16:9 rather than the portrait mode. And it's set at 5.7K or 8K, can't remember. Fiddling about with the mounting solution a little bit more, I actually came up with this way. A completely hands-free experience that literally just attaches to my bag. So I've worked out a way to actually hold the camera via my bag rather than my actual phone, creating this sort of like hands-free experience that you would otherwise not see through most of the other reviews. And although I can't necessarily walk with it because it kind of goes a bit crazy, but you're kind of expecting that from something like this anyway. The only thing with 360 cameras in this day and age is that they do tend to actually get converted into 2D images from a 3D experience. It's all about being able to capture every angle at once without necessarily worrying too much as to what's really around you. Opposed to a lot of the other ways you can shoot with this, what I've done is actually created a contraption that fits inside of my bag and makes sure it's held reasonably securely. I can't run or walk like this, however, doing these sort of shooting experiences, or just kind of hey, talking about a camera for instance, for doing tech reviews, this kind of setup would actually work out quite well. Okay, so this is now without the contraption that I made for the Insta360, and I think it's just a little bit more stable, got a little bit more control over it, because my entire body's kind of compensating for my movement. And I can get with this, and they're kind of full range with what you want to do and how you want to do it.
It's actually quite impressive to see the camera actually adjust to the right plane when you're just swinging it about, just kind of getting random shots and using it in different ways. The other thing that I was actually really impressed with the X5 was the audio just in general. I was in a busy alleyway, a noisy alleyway, as well as walking around in the streets, not using a microphone, and the audio was pretty clear, especially with the new AI noise detection on DaVinci. It worked out pretty damn well. The next shot is the Instaframe mode set to portrait, and just to show you what you can get out of it quickly.
The Insta360 X5 is out at the moment, and it's quite unique. It allows you to get shots that you would otherwise not be able to get as well, and do things a little bit different. The other thing is, it's the right to repair is really important with this particular launch, with the ability to actually change out the lens, because as with 360 cameras just in general, the lenses stick out from the actual camera. So being able to change this lens, scratch it too much, is super important, and it allows us to be more creative and do things a little bit differently. There's a car there. Hello. What's in?
Now, I will say the footage out of the Pocket 3 was a little bit better when I tried it with the mount that I had for there. However, with the Pocket 3, I ended up needing a more complex solution to be able to monitor what the camera is actually seeing, making sure that it's both tracking me and that I'm in shot. And overall, the experience felt like I need to have more managing over it, rather than just shooting and then forgetting about it and getting on with the actual video and getting good content ultimately. So both did well. I think when it comes to talking shots or me walking around talking about my experience, I think the X5 actually did better. If I'm talking to somebody else and I don't want another angle of myself, then the Pocket 3, I believe, gets better, more cinematic looking footage, and especially with the ability to connect to the DJI mic system, it does come out on top here. on top in that retrospect. However, if I am getting an off-the-cuff interview, but I both a shot of them and me, and if I'm explaining a camera to one of the sales staff in the shop or just somebody out in the street, being able to just set down the X5 and get two half decent angles to tell a story was actually something I admired a lot about the X5. Something that I did find a little bit weird is when I had to go into post-processing. The Instaframe worked a lot better and got a shot that I was ultimately a lot more happy with. However, when it comes to the shots in the camera, it does actually do another shot which you're allowed to change the kind of composition again in post, which is actually really useful. The actual post-process on the 360 shots did need that management in order to create both good looking shots, but also, general shots in general. But with the post-processing, it actually gives me 20 different shots. It gives me a B-roll shot here, or, it has a lot of option for you to really expand how much you created for
this video. And something 360 cameras are being used for more and more is creating 2D images. So I think Insta360, especially with the X5, have done a really good job overall creating a really nice experience. However, might take some form of creating just that little bit longer to really perfect. Of course, these cameras do give you the ability to really think a little bit outside the box. I think with the Pocket 3, instead of carrying a big, massive gimbal in and around with you, you can get away with capturing some really decent gimbal-like shots just with the actual camera itself, rather than using something like an FX3 on a gimbal, which might take up more space in a gear bag for shooting option that you're not necessarily going to be using all the time. But I will say, especially with the time-lapse and the hyperlapse mode, I do think the X5 has a place in everybody's gear bag in order to be able to create shots that you would really not be able to capture otherwise. And overall, and to kind of conclude my thinking when it comes to these cameras, is they are both absolutely fantastic. They are great at shooting, and one may shoot cooler looking footage, but the other one has the ability to shoot all of the footage all at once. So when you're looking at this, now I'm not saying you need to buy both of them in order to be the best creator, but they really do give you two separate solutions to a similar problem or a similar thing that you're looking to do. And in this video, I hope you can see that in some cases one may be better, in other cases the other may be better, and they both kind of work together in order to be able to create videos that you ultimately are going to be happy with. Now, if you like the video, if you have any questions, make sure you put them in down below. Please like, follow, and subscribe if you want to see more. Have a good day.